And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Traveling up. Roger, roll, Planet.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. It's orange!
R45!
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Decollage! Look at this! Put that in the big bag, Jingle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Intrepid Museum Astro Live, where each month we talk to scientists and engineers who are doing amazing things in the space industry, and we ask them your questions as well. My name is Alicia Siegel. I'm your host today, and as a reminder, our show is live, so please do feel free to drop any of your questions in the chat, and we will do our best to get them answered for you. Also, as a reminder, Astro Live is supported through a NASA cooperative agreement awarded to the New York Space Grant Consortium, so we thank them, as always, for their support for our show as well. And now, I'm sure that you've noticed a bit of a trend over these past few months with our show, connecting space exploration to underwater exploration, and that's because back in June, the Intrepid Museum opened up a new exhibit called Mysteries from the Deep, Exploring Underwater Archaeology in our Space Shuttle Pavilion, and I will talk more about that exhibit later. But since we opened the exhibit, on this show, we've explored NASA's Neutral Buoyancy Lab, we've talked about spacesuits and exosuits that go underwater, and now this month, just in time for spooky season, I should add, we have a very exciting story that we're going to be talking about. It's an underwater expedition that went out to shine some light on a decades-old mystery near the Bermuda Triangle, but instead, they uncovered something else that had been missing for over 25 years. And yes, it does relate to space. So before we bring on our guests, I want to give you a little bit of a backstory to set the stage here. Again, just in time for Halloween, this spooky unsolved mystery about what this expedition originally went out to find. So as you can see here, I'm sure you've all heard about the Bermuda Triangle, right? So it's that triangular area over the Atlantic Ocean between the southern part of Florida, up and out to Bermuda, and then down to Puerto Rico. So over the past century, it's been the focus of a number of urban legends because, of course, as I'm sure you all have heard, the number of airplanes and ships and things that have disappeared there, they've just completely vanished without a trace, and it's been a little weird. So a lot of people believe, oh, there's something mysterious and paranormal about that particular area of the ocean. Maybe it's the lost site of Atlantis, or maybe there's weird magnetic anomalies in the area, or even a portal to another dimension or something. Or maybe everything could also just be chalked up to coincidence due to storms or mechanical or user error too. But regardless, some of these stories are actually really fascinating. So one of the earliest and most famous of these disappearances was about Flight 19. So this was a group of 5 Navy TBM Avenger torpedo bombers. They went on a routine training mission on December 5th, 1945. And you actually might recall even the opening scene of the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where they're in present day and they discover this squadron of pristine World War II era planes in the middle of the Sonora Desert in Mexico. And then later at the end, the pilots, they all show up too, they're all the same age as when they left. Well, that's actually meant to be this flight. And again, this was just a normal navigation and combat training exercise. They were scheduled to go due east from Fort Lauderdale to do some low-level bombing run practices. Then they were going to go north and then back down on a southwest leg back to their base. So their own little triangle in a way. But those 5 planes, they took off just after 2 in the afternoon that day. Favorable weather. They were in regular radio communication with their base. But as the hours passed, it started to become apparent that the squadron had flown off course and they were lost. So the flight leader was even reported as saying over the radio, "We aren't sure of our position. We can't be sure which way is west or of any direction. Everything is wrong. Strange. The ocean doesn't look like it should." And then shortly thereafter, they were never heard from again. So local bases and aircraft and merchant ships in the area, they were all alerted to go search for them and to guide them back to land if they could. And one of these search and rescue aircraft was a Martin PBM Mariner with its own 13-man crew, dubbed Squadron Training Number 49. So it launched from Florida's Naval Air Station in Banana River, which space fans today would know as the home of Patrick Space Force Base near Cape Canaveral. But shortly after it took off, it too was never heard from again. There was absolutely no sign of the wreckage or any trace of these missing planes or pilots. And all in all, 27 men and 6 airplanes just completely vanished that day. And it was all officially later blamed on navigational error and just running out of fuel. And in the case of the Mariner, maybe even a mid-air collision, but they've never been able to track down and recover these planes to find out for certain. So this year, actually 2025, marks the 80th anniversary of this unsolved mystery. And over the years, many planes, including many Avengers, actually, just like the one that we happen to have on display at the Intrepid Museum, check that out. Subtle plug, come check it out, please. Many planes, though, have been found in the area, but crazily enough, none of their parts have matched the serial numbers of those particular pieces of that particular squadron. Also, add to that now, of course, all of the spaceflight activity that's happening off that coast. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of other stuff that's down there too. And so that is where my friends joining me today, Michael Barnette and Jimmy Gadomski, who are underwater explorers. They do this stuff for a living. This is where they come in. So in 2022, they went on an expedition to scour the ocean floor for the wreckage of that rescue plane, the Martin PBM Mariner, that went out looking for Flight 19. And instead, they found something even more unexpected, a 20-foot fragment of the Space Shuttle Challenger, which was actually the first major Challenger artifact recovered in more than 25 years. So enough of me blabbering on here. I am so thrilled to welcome to our show today, Michael Barnette and Jimmy Gadomski. Thank you so much for joining me, fellows. First of all, Michael Barnette, let me give you a little background on each of them. Michael Barnette is an accomplished diver, author, and photographer who's been actively researching and exploring shipwrecks for over 35 years, resulting in the identification of almost 80 shipwrecks and over 50 lost aircraft. He's also served as a marine biologist for 26 years with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and is the founder of the Association of Underwater Explorers, which sounds so cool, which is the coalition of divers dedicated to the research, exploration, documentation, and preservation of submerged cultural resources. Then we also have Jimmy Gadomski, who is also an experienced technical diver and a captain based in South Florida, who's been involved with many diving projects along the East Coast, Gulf, and the Caribbean. His other projects include salvage projects in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, including the Pulaski shipwreck, which was identified by a candlestick that Jimmy recovered on a dive in 2017. He's also a rebreather diver and a technical dive instructor. Both of them were featured on the History Channel's Bermuda Triangle Into Cursed Waters series, which documented the exploration of many remote and unidentified shipwrecks, including this discovery. So, with all that said, I'd like to now welcome you two. Thank you so much for being on the show. And let's dive into this, shall we? My goodness, what an exciting find. And I guess, first of all, I have to ask, do you guys believe in all the mumbo jumbo with the Bermuda Triangle? Was that ever in effect for you?
No, well, first, Alicia, thank you for inviting us. That was a fantastic introduction. You pretty much nailed everything and covered a lot of the points we're going to be talking about tonight. So thank you for the invitation to speak to your audience here. To answer your question, I think I'll speak for myself first. As a scientist, I do not believe in the Bermuda Triangle. It's fascinating that it's such an enduring pop culture kind of mystery. It's a great way to just kind of lump in all these mysteries, disappearances, both aircraft and vessels. But that's, for me, that's kind of been a driving catalyst, is to go out and try to identify these lost shipwrecks and aircraft and basically give evidence that there's rational explanations for all these disappearances. And we've been doing that. We've been kind of chipping away at the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle. So, Jimmy?
And yeah, this is a well-traveled route as a captain and traveling these waters all the time. I understand that, yeah, if you have this many ships, planes, everything traveling through one kind of area, then you're going to have casualties, you're going to have rough weather, you're going to have everything that we've come across underwater. And kind of solving these mysteries and putting an end to everything that we found, but it's not hocus pocus. It's not paranormal activity, anything like that. It is there is a rational explanation for every one of the wrecks that we found that have gone down.
Yeah, and
Sure.
we spend a lot of time on the water. And we've seen a lot of crazy stuff happen, and a lot of these historical events that have happened. You don't need the extra drama of aliens and time warps and portals and stuff. There's crazy stuff happens on the water, accidents happen, and sometimes the real life experiences of what actually happened to these vessels and aircraft is drama enough that you don't need this extra sci-fi kind of added element to it.
Absolutely. So you guys are kind of like underwater mythbusters then, right? Like you're out there to prove, to scientifically validate, okay, no, actually this is what happened, which is great. I think that kind of closes the door for a lot of, people who lost loved ones also, and just history as a whole.
No, and that's you just touched on, I think, what is a big motivating factor for myself and Jimmy is to try to not bring closure, because you're never going to bring closure to people who've lost loved ones. But we've found and identified a lot of missing aircraft, and just to, as you mentioned with the Flight 19, the TBM Avengers, during World War II, I mean, Florida is basically an aircraft carrier, a terrestrial aircraft carrier. There's training going on all around the southeast U.S. and off Florida particularly, and there's a lot of missing aircraft that have gone down during training because training is probably the more dangerous. I mean, obviously we know that combat is dangerous. People are shooting at you, but when you're learning to fly and you're learning to navigate and you're learning all these skills, accidents happen a lot, and that's a very dangerous time in aviation for new pilots. So I think for us trying to tell these stories and basically try to tell the families that we remember their lost loved ones and they're in the service of their country, that their sacrifice is just as tragic as those that were lost abroad during wartime, and because it all is part of service to our country. So
I mean, underwater mythbuster was a good way to sort of put it, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, people want to come up with some kind of conclusion to what has happened, and just to not know anything. Now they're giving some kind of conclusion, calling it a story, calling it the Bermuda Triangle, giving some kind of closure to something there. But no, we're actually finding these wrecks on the bottom of the ocean and telling a story that would be forgotten.
Yeah, and as we're going to be talking about here as well with the Challenger, to really explain these disappearances, to try to figure out the forensics of it, you need to find the aircraft. You need to find the wreckage first, because that wreckage will tell a story. So that's what we've been doing. We've been going out and finding these wrecks, analyzing them, documenting them, trying to identify them. And that's kind of what led us to what we're talking about tonight. When we've done a lot of television together and through the years. And as you touched on already, Bermuda Triangle is an enduring mystery that captivates viewers. And it's like catnip for television producers. And every few years, people come back to us saying, what stories can we talk about now about the Bermuda Triangle? And prior to this expedition, we did a 2-hour special for History Channel, History's Greatest Mysteries, and we went out. And this was had high hopes. We were hoping to go out and actually go find Flight 19. We were working with the research vessel Petrel, which was Paul Allen's research vessel. They worked in the Pacific for many years and found a lot of iconic World War II naval vessels, the Indianapolis, the Yorktown. These guys are the GOAT when it comes to underwater exploration and shipwreck, discoveries in the past 10 years or so. And they came to the Atlantic, and we felt that now we have the tools and the capability to actually put this to rest and find Flight 19. Then COVID happened. So we had a huge curveball. Maybe that was Bermuda Triangle just throwing the wrench in the works, working against us. And I went out for a week, and while we're offshore, we started seeing the news about the first episodes of this breaking out around the world. and we came back to dock, and everything got shut down.
Hmm.
But at the very end, we had a Hail Mary. We went out off Northeast Florida, wanted to try to make the show happen at the last minute, and we dove numerous sites. One turned out to be a freighter called the Sandra, which is actually a Bermuda Triangle. If you read any of the Bermuda Triangle books, this is always one of the ones, like the Cotopaxi we found 15 years ago. That was also in the Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So that was another Bermuda Triangle mystery that we could tick the box and we found and give a rational explanation. We also found a couple other aircraft. We found an F-8 Crusader that was lost in a training exercise, and we found a TBM Avenger, and that was again that helped to drive this story. Again, the lost Flight 19. We actually found one of the type of aircraft, and the production team and the network figured that, hey, if we can go out one day and find these 3 different wrecks and create this buzz, let's do it again.
But you found them all in one day?
I
Yes.
mean, originally we had 5 dive days to complete this production. So we were working with about 5 days. And then we had 3 hurricanes that were circled all around us. And our 5 days got cut to 3 days. Well, with transit time, we had roughly a little over 24 hours, maybe 26 hours to actually get the dives in that we needed to do. And in that time frame, we were able to make 3 huge discoveries because of this TV production that we had out there. And we're bouncing on these shipwrecks, the most, I don't know, best targets that we had at the time to go after. And we were able to make 3 huge discoveries in a matter of, 36 hours, maybe a little bit more, being offshore.
And Alyssa, you just mentioned something. So we identified these wrecks. We didn't actually discover them because a lot of these wrecks, there's structure on the bottom that fishermen, it attracts fish and it attracts fishermen. So we use a variety of sources to find potential shipwreck sites. And these were sites that were known to fishermen. They didn't know what was on the bottom. They knew something was there, and that piqued our interest. We work a lot with commercial and recreational fishermen to find new shipwreck sites. A lot of times they keep this information confidential because that's their honey hole, that they make money off of these sites. But sometimes their curiosity gets the best of them, and they know we have a track record of identifying these sites. And this is a great example of 3 sites that were in fairly close proximity to each other. And we went down and were able to do very quick dives on all 3 of them. But with the information we gather from each site, that's when the next step happens. So we hit the archives. We've developed. We know shipwrecks, and a lot of times it's not a Hollywood film site on the bottom. It's just debris spread all over the bottom, and you have to be able to mentally reassemble this debris on the bottom to figure out what you're looking at and understand what you're looking at. And that's what we did and accomplished, made it so successful because we've been doing this for a long time.
And because of these 3 discoveries and everything that kind of panned out from that one episode of History's Greatest Mysteries, they came to us and they said, oh, would you like to run a miniseries, Bermuda Triangle into Cursed Waters, which is the show that we kind of spiraled off of that. And then we continued the story of finding the Martin Mariner and Flight 19. And that led us to starting this episode of the first episode that we panned out at, looking for the Martin Mariner. And that kind of spiraled into something huge.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because of, this, I guess Flight 19 is kind of our white whale, trying to go out and find this. And as I mentioned before, we had for a very short time, the capability and the resources of the RV Petrel. And I just want to let everyone know, we feel that Flight 19 is most likely, these aircraft are about 70 to 80 miles offshore, way offshore in very deep water. So not attainable by recreational divers, well, technical divers even, like us. But the PBM Martin Mariner, which was dispatched to go out and try to rendezvous with them and basically bridge the gap with radio communication and try to guide them back to shore, we feel, based on our archival information, that potentially that is in diveable depths. And for us, diveable depths, we're talking about 400 feet or less. We still feel it's in deep water, but still potentially attainable with our capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we went out, and given our experiences with COVID and the last production, we basically pushed on production saying we'd love to go out before we actually do official shooting and do some recon, to go out and try to look at some sites we had, again, from fishermen, to see if we can rule out what is probably not worthy of a dive. It's not going to be good for television, or potentially identify something that's going to be more compelling. And that's what we did. And we were using, strangely enough, there's a lot of parallels between Flight 19, the Martin Mariner, our search for those aircraft, and the Space Shuttle Challenger. So now I'm going to jump to talk about the Challenger event, because that kind of, it meshes into why we're where we were, and why what the data source was to go out and do these recon dives.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, January 28th, 1986, I remember that because I was a freshman in high school. And if you're of a certain age, I mean, this event, 73 seconds after liftoff, catastrophic explosion. I mean, we know the broad strokes of this. But this was, for someone of my age, this is like a 9/11 for someone of a younger age as well, that might not, or for an older age, the Kennedy assassination. Again, these events are so breathtaking and so just shocking that you remember where you were when it happened. And that was, for me, that I remember exactly where I was and how I learned of it. So in the wake of that disaster, the largest basically ocean search and recovery mission was initiated, because now we need to find out what caused this catastrophic accident. And obviously NASA needed to get back in the air. So they need to find the cause to figure out if this was a systemic issue or if it's something that can be addressed. So finding the aircraft, it's like any aviation accident out there, NTSB, the government gets involved and they piece together to figure out, do the forensic analysis to figure out what caused the accident. So the Navy went out and we used this archival information. This was almost 2 years of searching. They used the NR1, they used ROVs, they did towed sleds to go out and basically find all the debris from the Space Shuttle Challenger. Not only the vehicle, but the solid rocket boosters. And that was, that turned into the focus because I think we quickly realized that was the catalyst of this disaster, was the solid rocket boosters. Based on the video evidence during liftoff, you could see that flaring up with the O-rings. So we used, if you want to advance, we used that information that was published in the Rogers Report. This was multi-volume, basically analysis of the accident. And the Navy supervisor of salvage, they went out again, and they put all this information together. And in the next image, you can see the search area. This is not a small area. This is a again, this was the largest search and recovery operation to date offshore. And this kind of breaks down the area where you see Cape Canaveral there to the west, and the various areas there. And you have the Gulf Stream influence there, which obviously complicates things. It's got scattered debris northward, especially as the farther out offshore you go. And so these are the different zones they kind of broke into to do the different surveys to find basically every bit of material. And in the next image, you'll see they've had thousands of contacts. And this, again, this is 1987, 1988. They had very rudimentary GPS and positioning, but again, they did a phenomenal job mapping the seafloor off Cape Canaveral here, and they found a lot of things by accident. And that's the key, is not only were they finding material related to the Space Shuttle Challenger, but they found geological anomalies, they found shipping containers, they found a lot of debris and trash, they found some shipwrecks, and they found some aircraft. Mm-hmm. So we felt in this area, again, getting back to the PBM Martin Mariner, we felt that if there was anomalies, if they found debris related to aircraft, we need to find out what that was. Was it related to the the PBM Mariner, because again, it took off from Banana River Naval Air Station to the south of the Cape there and went right through this area. So potentially, it could have been found by the Navy back in 1987, 1988, when they're looking for the Space Shuttle Challenger. And that was kind of the catalyst of our thought process to go out and use this data to see if, what these sites were, basically to do some ground truthing.
And if their main focus was the Challenger itself, then we're thinking that they have recovered the majority of the Challenger pieces that have come out. They've recovered clearly all the big pieces and all the significant finds from the Challenger. So any aircraft material that's still out there, that's of great interest to us if it's not related to the Challenger, because they're surveying this entire area and we're trying to get data wherever we can get data from to find the Mariner. And
so they basically did a lot of the hard work for you already in terms of mapping things out that were things that might be interesting to look at. There was a question in the chat. Had you ever considered looking for Challenger before your discovery of the Challenger? But as you just said, you assumed that they'd already gotten all the big pieces and everything. So there probably wasn't much left to look for, right?
No, exactly. You nailed it. I mean, this was a total accidental discovery. We had no idea that we would find the Challenger. I mean, again, our impression was that all the large pieces were found. I mean, we knew that they were trying to recover the solid rocket boosters for the accident analysis, but obviously there's a huge impetus to recover as many pieces of the vehicle as possible, including the crew compartment, for to recover any remains of these 7 astronauts. So we felt they recovered anything of substantial size would be recovered. And as you see these images here, these are some of the larger pieces here. After they did their analysis, trying to put the puzzle back together, all this was interned. This is all interned on Kennedy Space Center in a missile silo. They call it the crypt, and it's hallowed ground. If anyone's done tours there, there's several sites there from past unfortunate incidents in space exploration. There's been we've learned a lot of things through trial and error, unfortunately, and a lot of people have paid the price. A lot of brave astronauts. So.
And even what's pictured there, what we found was a bigger section of what they're pulling up there, even pictured. I mean, it was well bigger than that. I mean, we're talking 20 by 20 at least. And a lot of it was buried too. So since a lot of it being buried, it was very hard to distinguish how big the section that we found actually was.
Yeah. Well, to touch on
there's
some of your questions about.
Sorry, there's also a large section, I believe, on display at the Kennedy Space Center in the shuttle area also. They've got like a really nice memorial area. I think it actually might be, I remember I think it says like United States on the side. It might actually be that piece. But yeah, what you guys found was even bigger, which is wild. Which is wild to me that they would miss that.
Yeah, and to touch on your point, again, we actually, we have a little video clip. We actually have some behind the scenes. So again, TV is not necessarily what actually happened. You can see this is behind the scenes footage. This happened in February 28th. We want to do, again, this is a recon trip.
About how far away is this from the
a bunch of
other
numbers.
cluster?
A1.
Like a mile,
Right here.
2 miles?
No, less than that.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it could be associated then.
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's pretty sweet that they're that close to each other.
Is that a coincidence or is it by design?
Hopefully
that could be.
by design.
Yeah.
We definitely marked it. Right as I came off plane, we marked it. We went right over it. So.
How crazy would that be? They think it's the wing of the shuttle. It's not. It's the wing of the Mariner.
That's what I'm saying. What if they don't know? What if they wouldn't? They wouldn't put 2 and 2 together, maybe.
I don't see how NASA could miss this though.
I don't think that they could either. They scanned the whole freaking ocean.
Yeah, and they scan the sites that we're going to after this, or that's their search area. So
They picked up all the big stuff, and you think that'd be one of the ones that they'd want to.
well, yeah, or at least identify it to say what it was.
Where were you when it blew up?
I was in high school, freshman year.
What?
That's being a nice guy. Hey.
Can Kevin pause this for a second? We can pause it. So
we'd been searching all day at this point, and no targets, no anything. A lot of just nothing on the bottom, and finally we come across a target.
Yeah, we finally found a target worthy of diving. And if there is a mystery to the Bermuda Triangle, I think just kind of the reason we're laughing is because we're getting ready to suit up and go dive, and Jimmy realizes he's lost his fins. Bermuda Triangle swallowed up his fins. So I'm sitting here again. We still have no idea what we're getting ready to dive on, and so I'm offering up my fins to Jimmy to go to dive. And had I known what he was getting ready to dive on, I would have done it myself first, right, to be the first one. But the visibility, the water looked like milk.
Let me stop you there. He's like, yeah, go ahead and go dive. Basically, we threw anything in the water, just disappeared instantly. So it was like diving in milk. Yeah. You couldn't see anything. He's like, here's my fins. Go dive this. See what's on the bottom. This is target probably like 7 or 8 for the day, and finally we have a little hit on the radar, and we think there's something down there, but. Really, I jumped in the water and I couldn't see my hand in front of my face.
Oh my God. So wait, give us a sense, like how deep was this target? How deep were you guys diving at this point?
It's shallow. It was really shallow. It's 60 to 70 feet. So it's not deep at all, but you throw anything in the water exactly where we are and it just disappeared instantly.
And is that normal for that area, for the visibility to be so bad? Is that maybe why things get like, is that the Bermuda Triangle? Is it just that the visibility is so bad?
No. So in this area, we're about 7 miles off Cape Canaveral in an area called Canaveral Shoals. There's a sandy bottom there. It's very turbid. But a lot of the area that Bermuda Triangle, again, the fictitious Bermuda Triangle, it covers a large area, and visibility out there it's usually phenomenal. But again, it's variable based on wind, tides, currents, what have you. So it changes from day to day. But again, the reason I was so kind of nonchalant about this is because frequently we're diving targets. You find a lot of junk. You find rocks. You find it's not all rainbows and unicorns. It's usually a lot of setbacks and just frustration. So again, that's why I was like, I had no expectations. This is what was on the bottom,
and there was not much on the depth sounder that indicated anything significant was going to be there either.
So yeah, if Kevin wants to show the rest of this, you'll see exactly how this unfolded. The rest of this dive.
Be a nice guy. You can make the discovery of the century right here. You're the treasure hunter anyway.
Yeah,
You're the work.
let's just set him down on the dock. I said, yeah, like we were there. No way we would have left him there. Everything was through.
Beyond 40 feet, it is 0.
Really?
Yeah, like I ran into the bottom.
See a fish?
Yeah,
Okay.
I ran into a fish.
Yeah, like literally like 5 or 10 feet that way.
Hey, do you need a reel to run a circle?
I got a reel.
I could barely see my hand in front of my face at this point in time. I'll put it that
Be
way.
expected in this area, this depth. A lot of times it just be milky, down at the bottom.
A few moments later.
What you got?
It's definitely a wig.
You fucking with me?
It's pretty big.
Are you fucking with me?
I got it all on video. I got some material off of it too.
What do you think it's like? Is it just bare aluminum, or is it more different weird materials like
Seems
composites?
like it's aluminum, and it seems like some of it's disintegrated.
I just put my hand for scale so I can send to this guy. So I'm texting a friend of mine who is a shuttle astronaut, a former shuttle astronaut, to see if he recognizes this material. If he says it looks familiar to him, he would probably know how this was constructed.
Yeah. Walk us through kind of what just happened. You got text.
So we must have just gotten SOFA range. They got a response back from my friend who was with a space program, and he's very familiar with the shuttle, being on 2 missions. He says, yes, that looks like SIP, strain isolation pad, one under each shuttle tile, glued on with a type of RTV.
Okay.
So, wow, you've become part of the Challenger.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's pretty interesting. So
Not what we were looking for,
I'm
but
just wondering what I should say now to them. So, they might know. It might be a non-issue. I mean, they obviously didn't get 100% of the vehicle.
right.
Should let them know at least. It might be worthy of documenting, and
Yeah.
who knows? I don't know what Joe and the TV guys will want to do with this. If they want to run with this or not. Or, I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's
We
awesome.
can talk about the whole program and how it plays into what we're doing, trying to find the Mariner. So we accidentally found part of the Challenger. Shit, I didn't wake up thinking that today.
So if Kevin can pause it real quick. So yeah, that was, again, that kind of gives you insight to where, you're basically riding along with us that day, and it was a total accidental discovery. And at that time though, we had that piece of forensic evidence to associate this was part of the Challenger, but we still had no idea, as Jimmy can attest to, no visibility. We didn't know if it was just the size of a laptop computer or if it was something larger. So we felt if we were going to come back to NASA with our findings, we needed to have better evidence.
Sure.
So we actually went out a few months later, and we had phenomenal visibility. You'll see next footage. You can go ahead and play it, Kevin.
So they're out there. They're like, yeah, let's go back out there and film this. I was like, I don't know what you're going to see because I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. So we go back there, and this is the footage.
Yes.
And I couldn't believe it. I was like, well, thanks, guys. You gave me the best day that we could have.
Yeah.
It's amazing, though.
As you can see, that we have great visibility, but the material is largely buried under the sand. Again, we're close to Canaveral Shoals. The sand is always shifting. And so there's probably years this has been totally buried and hidden from view, and other times it's probably been more exposed. So right here, we're actually trying to expose the perimeter of it so we can, one, figure out what it is, measure it, to help document what exactly we're dealing with here. And now it's not laying flat to the bottom, it's laying it at kind of an angle. It's a large flat surface, obviously. But it dives under the sand. So again, we're trying to expose some of the sand to get the extent of the dimensions of this large piece. And as we go through, you can see there some of the tiles. Those are the thermal tiles that were on the bottom surface of the vehicle for reentry. And a lot of them are missing because, again, this has been exposed. There's been hurricanes over the past, numerous decades. So this has been weathered by the marine environment. I'm actually seeing how large this is. I'm just astonished.
The more we uncovered, the more we saw like how actually significant and large this piece was, and more tiles that were under the sand were I guess preserved by the sand. A lot of what was above the sand had worn away, and a lot of this had deteriorated. But everything under the sand, it was preserved a little bit more by the sand.
Yeah.
So this just blows my mind that this has been down there for, 25 years in recreational, really diving limits, about 40 feet there. I mean, I've dived more than that. Like, that's pretty wild to me. Like, is it just something that because it was kind of covered up, like people just thought, oh, it's just trash or just completely unnoticeable? How do you notice something like that, especially in Milky Water? I know you were looking for it or for something originally, but how do you know when you see something? How do you know something is worth a closer look? How did you even see that in the first place?
Well, a lot of this comes from experience. We've been doing this for so long. We kind of recognize when something is just a shipping container or garbage thrown off the deck of a ship versus something more substantial like this. And obviously, if it's something aviation related or aviation adjacent, this gave all those signs of that. So, it was pretty obvious to us what this was, and now we had some really good evidence to bring to NASA to document, because as we found out every year, well-meaning people, they're strolling the beach, find a styrofoam cup or other garbage that washes ashore, and they feel it's related to the space shuttle, and they report it, and it's always not related. I mean, as you mentioned in the intro, the last time a substantial piece of the Challenger was found was 25 years ago when a storm washed ashore a piece of the wreckage. But that was much smaller than this. So this is pretty substantial find.
In a big scheme of things, though, for normal divers that would go out, this is a very small target. Nobody's just going to go out and be like, oh, I'm going to dive on this target right here, because most people are going out diving shipwrecks or artificial reefs that are known have been sunk and going out there enjoying their dive. But this is such a small target that would show up on the depth finder. Most people would probably just pass this by if they were to even come across it and see it to begin with.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so it's more of like a random kind of area that isn't something pretty to look at or anything that people wouldn't waste their tanks for their dives on. I get that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
But I do need to emphasize, so this was a fishing number. This fisherman knew about this site because it was structured. You can see the fish that are attracted to it. And I've been diving off Cape Canaveral for 25, 30 years. I had my boat over there for a few years. And I always heard, urban legends that, the lobster divers and some of the other locals there, there's still large pieces of the Challenger out there. But I always heard stories about, oh yeah, you could dive down and see, it says United States of America on the side. And when I press for more information, it's always like, oh, my sister's brother's uncle's cousin has the numbers. I could never get confirmation. And this is pre GoPro video and stuff. So trying to find credible information was always lacking, but in the background, there's always talk from locals that there was still material out there. So again, I don't want to say that we discovered this, because this was found using fishermen's intelligence, their intel, their numbers and stuff. And because again, all the numbers we were looking for that engine and propeller came up empty, but this was very close by, as we'll talk about here in a second. And this panned out. Again, not what we're looking for, but still an amazing discovery.
Now, in terms of uncovering it too, like I saw you had kind of like fans and you were kind of very carefully sort of getting the edges of it and everything. How do you balance? I mean, first of all, you're super excited. You found something, right? How do you balance that excitement of the exploration with needing to document it, really? I know, like Jimmy, for example, you mentioned that you've done a lot of like kind of 3D photogrammetry, like stuff to piece things together. And how do you kind of preserve it and make sure you're not accidentally like ripping off a piece that would have been really important, and just kind of knowing what to do with it next?
Well, what we're doing in the video there is just moving the sand out of the way. So it is lightly covered in sand, and then we're using the underwater scooter to basically move that sand, blow that sand, but it's not damaging the wreckage itself. It's just kind of dusting the top layer and getting to where we can see what's under it, what's the structure look like, and then that allows us to go down with the cameras, do photogrammetry, actually accurately map this and measure this, so we know what we're looking at, and not harming the structure at all in the long run.
That it is a fair point, though, because there's a fine line about trying to document and not trying to damage or erode evidence. In this case, we're talking about a site in shallow water, highly dynamic area near the shoals. It's been impacted by hurricanes for decades. You can see by the tiles there, they're eroded, worn down. Most of them are missing. And largely, we're trying to get just the perimeter of it. We weren't trying to just obviously try to recover this. But we'll get into that later, because we did kind of open Pandora's box a little bit by finding this and announcing this, making this discovery. But I think we should go ahead and move on now. And we'll get back into more of the forensics of it and how we figured out exactly what this is. I mean, we know this is part of Challenger, but what is it? And so our next step basically was, I had already the information from the reports for non-shuttle related information, but now we had to step back and start over. We wanted to recreate what NASA had done and the Navy had done with all the contacts they found. So I digitized, basically entered in, it was all dot matrix computer printout, and entered in all the different entries for all the material all the contacts they found. And again, this is all, every icon means something different. There was geology, there was unknown material, there was shuttle related that was recovered, shuttle related that was not recovered, and also just non-shuttle material. So again, each icon means something to me as I'm trying to pick apart this information. As we go to the next one, this basically shows you all the shuttle related contacts, and it kind of lays out the map of that incident from January 1986. We see that one cluster about 7.5 miles off Cape Canaveral, and that's the vehicle, more or less. That's the remains of the vehicle. If you remember the explosion, the vehicle kind of got blown clear from the solid rocket boosters, and while the solid rocket boosters kind of flew for quite a while, they kept going offshore. And that's what you see further offshore. That's the other two solid rocket boosters in that area offshore. So it's a very large playing field. But again, we want to use this and zoom in on that near shore site. So we'll look at the next one, and you'll see exactly, again, this is all the descriptions, the keywords that the NASA data had. All the green is shuttle-related material that was recovered. So again, 95% of this is all recovered. The blue arrows were non-shuttle anomalies, and that's, you'll see here in a second, kind of gives context of why we're there in the first place. And there's a few yellow dots here. That was not recovered material. So we'll go to the next slide. Again, we're kind of winnowing down and trying to make sense of the chaos. And here at the very top of this image, you see airplane propeller. That was our original area we're looking for. We had about 7 or 8 targets around that position, hoping to find an engine and part of the PBM Mariner. And on the way back, we had scoured that area, came up empty. We moved back down south, and my friend said we had this one target that fishermen call the wing. Again, we're still thinking PBM Mariner or aircraft. But as you can see, the location there, the dive site, it's about 1,000 meters away from a mark that was in the NASA data. And the code for that was left wing not recovered, landing gear recovered. Again, it's all abbreviated, but that's kind of the interpretation of it. And that was kind of like, wow, that's that has to be what we found. It just is either inaccurate position information, or it's migrated over time, because the storms, things can move around on the bottom out there. And so that's kind of led us to, that was our assumption. So we put a report together. The next slide, you'll see, using all this information, the historical information, our images from our dives, we put together as like a 3 or 4 page document. We put together the day after our good visibility dive and submit it to NASA. Again, we had some contacts there. We felt it was important to document this and let them know before anything was revealed on television. This is very sensitive to family members. I mean, this was a painful event for a nation, but also to many families that had lost loved ones that day. And as we all know, this was especially, again, getting back to the point of how I know where I was at this time, is because we had a teacher that was going up on this mission, trying to reinvigorate interest in space exploration, Kristen McAuliffe. And so school kids around the country were watching this live, this mission. So again, it brings meaning. It's just this circle to come back and to be witness to this. Obviously, witness when I was a teenager, and then being able to touch it. I never would expect that to have occurred. So we submitted this to NASA, and we'll go through some of the other images here, kind of breaking down the forensic analysis of what we think we found, because we document the dimensions that we could see that were exposed, and also using information that we think the correlation, the linkage to their data, saying the left wing was in close proximity to where we dived at.
But now bringing this to the attention of NASA also sparked the interest of them as to, okay, well, they know it's here. They know it's been there. This is the first significant discovery in this many years, but now what do we do with it? What should, do we bring it up? Do we leave it there? Where do we go from here with this discovery, basically?
Yeah, and that's all questions for them to answer, because this is we want to make this very clear. This, again, I worked for NOAA for many years. I've worked with the Navy. I've worked with DPAA. I've worked with a lot of sensitive projects, including the USS Monitor and other projects. That this is government property. You can't just go out there and salvage this material. This is sovereign property belonging to NASA and the citizens of the United States. I mean, this is our heritage. So we did submit this to them, and again, kind of waiting their their answer. And also, we wanted them to sound in on this because we wanted, obviously, they're the experts. We need them to verify our assumptions, to get any kind of credibility. Obviously, there's a television show that they were very excited about this. Again, we sent text messages on the way back to the dock saying, well, we didn't find the PBM Mariner, but we found something else that is going to be of interest. And I think everyone's minds were blown. And the executives at the History Channel and A&E Networks, they felt we actually got a lot of accommodations. They felt this was their proudest moment in many of their careers, because this was so significant and it had so many reverberations when it made the news. But again, so we're going to forward on the next image, and we'll kind of get into more of the diagnostic analysis of what we're looking at. And this comes again from the available information from, again, this archival stuff from 87, 88, the reports. And you can see these are some of the large areas that were recovered from the vehicle. Again, a lot was not recovered. This was a massive explosion at altitude. It was spread out over a wide area. Then the currents probably carried portions of this away. You have materials of different densities and composition. So some's going to sink very quickly, and others potentially can float. So obviously, this was a problem they had to deal with in trying to. I don't think their expectations were to recover 100%. It just is not realistic given the physics involved and all the parameters. But this is kind of the right side view of the vehicle, and we'll go look at the left side view next. And this just gives you a 360 of all the different pieces and parts. And that's what this is. This was a puzzle for them to put everything back together to figure out what was there. And again, the focus was on the solid rocket boosters, but still, this is, I think they realized that this needed to be recovered and not left out there. It just wouldn't be right to leave that to the elements out there.
No, it really is amazing just how much wasn't recovered. And like you said, there's different materials, but even so, there's sections that are connected to each other, in those diagrams that you'd think, okay, well, maybe they stayed connected, or if they're the same density and materials and stuff, maybe they are still out there and close by even. It's really kind of wild that so much of it wasn't recovered.
Yeah, exactly. And it's what was interesting about this is because when we were trying to get to the bottom of why wasn't it recovered, they had obviously identified this as being the left wing, and they were trying to go through all the material. Again, you got to think back. This is 1986. There were a lot of just handwritten notebooks on these vessels, the search and rescue vessels. This was, we didn't have cell phones and people weren't texting each other, and it wasn't a lot of. I guess the documentation standards were a little bit different. Because it was handwritten, and they were going through boxes of stuff, and everyone that was involved with the search and recovery of this during this whole process, a lot of these guys are retired, long retired. So it was a kind of a treasure quest trying to find information on this.
Even to find anything on the ocean floor, I mean, the technology that we have today, you can get in a center console smaller boat. What was available in 1986 is so far off of anything that we have in today's technology. Even what we use to normally find shipwrecks or map the ocean floor, it's nothing like was available back then. So,
and I was going to say also, even compared to Columbia, right, in 2003, that wasn't, that was largely over land too. So I feel like maybe even finding those things is still a lot easier than going to the depths of the ocean trying to piece together another orbiter. That's so wild. Did they kind of largely stop looking after a while then too? Because I know there were a lot of people in the chat saying like, oh, well, it's been more than 25 years. You keep saying 25 years, but I just want to call attention to that too. Like, I think after a while, obviously there's still pieces out there to be found, but for the most part, did the search kind of end around 2000 or so?
Yeah, it definitely ended probably about 19. I think when they called off, I don't know the exact date. It was probably, this went on for about 14, 15 months. This is all documented in the reports. At that point, they concluded all search and recovery operations. And again, I'm not going to speak for NASA. I think we've all of us have seen documentaries There were a lot of lessons to be learned from that, and it was also a very painful experience. A lot of people, this is, if you talk to anyone that's in I know with your affiliation with NASA and everything, it's very much a team effort. It's not just the astronauts, but the thousands of people that put this together and get them into space, hopefully safely and back home safely. And I think everyone was just a collective loss in just this tragedy. So, there was that embarrassment. I think, again, I remember not only this disaster, but those words from Ronald Reagan when President Reagan came on air and gave a presidential address. And that was just the most, I think, just eloquent, capturing the feeling of not only NASA, but the nation and probably the world, because this did capture everyone's attention. But yeah, again, I'm kind of digressing here, but to answer your question, yeah, the search and recovery operations did end. Even when things wash up, they don't go out and look for more pieces. And that was the biggest question on this. What are they going to do? Again, as Jimmy alluded, we
what do we do here?
How do
we move forward?
We gave the report to them. We gave the position information. We gave very detailed, as best we can, given the limitations of what we're allowed to do out there. And it was up to them. And we were curious, and we had some got to know quite a few people in the program there, and there were several that were very interested in wanting to complete the mission, try to recover this material, and reunite it with the rest of the Challenger, and also just to, again, I think we were actually talking to, because I've worked with the Mudsu guys. That's the Navy Mobile Diving Salvage Unit. We worked them on the USS Monitor when they recovered the turret. So we have the capabilities and skill to do this easily. This is shallow water, very close to shore. It could be done very easily. And they were involved with the original search and recovery of the Challenger. So we felt there was continuity to, again, finish the mission. But again, that's not our call. It had to be NASA's call, and that was all done in private, closed doors. And I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So yeah, shows you kind of that picture there, showed you them trying to put everything together. And that helped to make those diagrams we just saw of all the recovered pieces and what was left missing. And if you saw all those images, there's one area that was just all white, and that was the left wing. And the next image, you can see we look at one of the schematics. We're trying to figure out exactly what we thought we found. And based on the angles, the dimensions, everything, we feel that is representative of what's on the bottom. I mean, that's the top side view, but you can see there's a box there towards the back side of that red box, and that was the landing gear, the wheel well, which was exposed. This whole portion is upside down, remember, because again, those tiles are largely on the bottom, and obviously landing gears on the bottom. So we did see those angles and we did see those measurements, and it's a substantial piece of the left wing of the Challenger. The flying surfaces on the aft end are missing, but again, the core portion of the wing is on the bottom now.
Yeah, and the box is sticking up from the bottom. You can see it in a lot of the images of when we were underwater.
Yeah.
So yeah, that entire wing was basically upside down.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking at. The landing gear. Obviously, it said they've recovered the landing gear, but this is the aftermath.
That's so wild. I know exactly what that looks like too, because we have a space shuttle, the Enterprise, at Intrepid, and you could literally walk right under this wing and see the wheel well and everything. And I'm like, I know exactly what that looks like. That's so wild.
Yeah, and so basically, the show aired. That was we actually went to NASA. We had a pretty good dialogue. Again, History Channel has worked with NASA on other projects. They were very sensitive. Unfortunately, just the name of our show gave them pause because the Bermuda Triangle alone. That's, NASA, they're serious people, and Bermuda Triangle is not as serious as, a lot of folks who want to be associated with. But we worked out, we had to negotiate what was to be said, and we actually went to Cape Canaveral and filmed there. And it was very hush-hush. Apparently at the time, there was less than, I think it was about a half dozen people knew what we had found. They kept it very close hold because they said as soon as one person tells anyone, at KSC, everyone knows. It spreads like wildfire there. And we were there filming, and they had all the PR people had to be ushered out of the room when we were filming.
Wait, but tell them why. You were telling me that earlier. The time, everyone think now it was around 2022. What was going on at that time?
It was great. We had a great cover story because we're actually in the room, and you can see there's a glass wall behind us. You can see Artemis was on the pad behind us, and so everyone felt it's got to be related to that, and we didn't, correct their assumptions, and so it kept it very quiet until basically the day of the show was. Basically, the news releases came out prior to the airing date of the special. It was really neat to see the rollout plan because the very first person, I think it was like 9 a.m., notified POTUS and then notified Congress. It was like every 15 minutes they rolled it out. Obviously, I've worked to know and I've done rollout plans for major rules, but to know that our discovery, the President of the United States is going to know about it that morning was kind of cool.
Yeah, really cool.
And then obviously they put their release out, the network put their release out, and then it just exploded and just raced around the world. We were doing interviews for 3 or 4 days solid about this leading up to the show.
Yeah, this released, I want to say probably about a week before the show. And I think every day leading up to the show's release, we had an interview, or there was always something scheduled or multiple things scheduled in a day leading up to that release of the show. And then the show came out, and our pilot episode of season 1, episode 1 was the Space Shuttle Challenger.
Yeah. But, we had to be very careful. I mean, NASA wanted to be involved. Not obviously they weren't making editing decisions, but they had some oversight in how the story is going to be portrayed. I mean, obviously, we want to be very sensitive and respectful, given the what we're dealing with, and I felt very strongly about that as well. So yeah, that was kind of, that gives you kind of an idea of what led us, how we were there in the first place, the day of discovery, and then the rollout, and really what's next is what's next. Again, the biggest question we heard was what's NASA going to do with the left wing, or actually at the time we weren't allowed to identify what it was. We just said it was a portion of the Challenger.
A portion or a segment or a piece of the Challenger, nothing related to a wing or anything like that.
Yeah. And so for basically, obviously I had a very strong opinion because we felt responsible that now the news is out there, and we were getting, as divers in the diving community, we were getting a lot of queries about give us the GPS coordinates. Everyone wanted to dive it. And we were adamant that,
can we go dive this? I was like,
this is not a
normal dive site. It's not a dive site you're going to go to and dive, and you're not allowed to go there. NASA will not approve of that.
Yeah, we were concerned about people taking material off the from there. Again, just we didn't want to see people putting Facebook images on the wing. It's a solemn site. It needs to be treated with respect. And again, I felt very strongly it should have been recovered. Interestingly enough, my friend in the space program, he felt that it should remain interned offshore. So there was a lot of difference of opinions, and obviously to recover this, it would cost significant amount of money, and if you wanted to conserve it and restore it, or not restore it, but just to preserve it so it didn't just rust away. There's real concerns and issues to be dealt with. It's not simple just going out there and picking it up off the bottom. But for basically a span of about a year and a half, I was having not weekly, but sometimes weekly, sometimes bi-weekly meetings with some of my friends, just conversations about, trying to get traction. How can we finish the mission and try to have this piece recovered? And we're contacting the Navy. NASA was trying to explore options. And ultimately, though, we heard that they had to consult with the families because, they had a very strong pull with what should be done with this piece, even though it's government property. The sacrifice of their families was still front and center of a lot of the conversations, and rightly so. Ultimately, though, we got word that the Navy, NASA had some funding. The Navy was available. They had a barge that was going to be in the area with a crane, and that we were going to try to put something together. And it was exciting. But then the problem was they couldn't find the site again. They actually went out there with an ROV. They couldn't find it. We got some kind of impression they felt that we gave them bad intel, bad information. So I basically volunteered to go out with the supervisor of salvage of the Navy and some commercial divers, go out there and relocate the site. And that's, you see the next images. We went out. This was in January, February of, let's say, 2024, last year, and put a buoy on it. It went right down on it, and they started probing it and trying to, again, it's gonna be the next few images there, Kevin.
Thank you, Skip.
No, yeah, can you forward a few pictures?
So you were able to put a buoy on it to mark the location
Yes.
more clearly then. It's so funny. People don't realize like how hard it is to find things. Yes, there's coordinates, but it really is tricky. I went on a scuba diving trip actually a couple months ago, and there was it was in Honduras. I'm sure you guys know, in Roatan, and it's like the seamounts, and it's like this mythological place that's like, very untouched and gorgeous, but it's so hard to find that oftentimes boats will go out and just completely miss it, and then, oh well, you've wasted that chartered day. But we found it. It was great. It was amazing. But it really is funny to know that, like, it's not as easy as a coordinate. It really is hard to find things down there.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I mean, even as getting back to Jimmy's first dive on this, I mean, he first went down the bottom, couldn't see anything, and he was only a few feet away from it. So again, you can be, right on top of it, but if it's sanded over, that portion sanded over, and you don't know where to look for, then you're gonna miss it. But we did put a buoy on it. They went down, and we had a great, successful day out there. And then we got word that they're gonna mobilize the crane, and I worked to get permission. Again, I want to document this for posterity. And NASA, my friend at NASA, was also very interested in doing this for educational purposes, for school kids and everything, to show. Now we can talk about the physics of underwater and what it's going to take to do this mission in inner space, not just outer space. So there's some interesting parallels and some potential learning possibilities. So I got permission from the Navy to participate. I got permission from the salvage company to go out on the barge. Obviously, it's being a work site. I initially got permission from NASA. I got permission from 4 or 5 different entities to go do this and film it and dive while this is happening. And this is I'm not being overly dramatic and speaking in metaphors. It was 11:30 the night before I was getting ready to drive over to Cape Canaveral. We got word that NASA was putting a gag order on everything. There'd be no images, no discussion about this project and what was going to happen. And so at that point, I saw no reason for me to be on the barge and be in everyone's way. So I stood down, but I was still invested, emotionally invested, and obviously physically invested, because I've been helping all this time, and I wanted to know how this was going to play out. Because again, Jimmy and I have salvaged items from the bottom before, and we felt this was. And we recovered a B-25 bomber from Lake Murray, South Carolina. We've recovered small things and big things.
We could properly get things from the seafloor.
Yeah.
Up, and we've done it multiple times, many times. And there's a certain way to do it. There's a certain way to approach it, especially if it's been down there for years. There's a lot of sand inside of the piece, inside of everything that's down there. I mean, it takes a lot. It's not a quick process.
Right. But we felt with being how shallow this was, how close to shore it was, and they had a barge and crane and all the equipment, we felt this should be a slam dunk. But for days, I couldn't get any response. I actually got response saying, we're not allowed to discuss with you. Sorry. So it was weeks afterwards. I knew they had concluded the project. Didn't know to what end, if it's successful or not. So I actually had to do a FOIA request to NASA. I did a Freedom of Information Act, and that got dragged out for about 5 or 6 months. And you can actually see some of the images. I got some of the information I got back from them were quite interesting, because I sent back before that. That report that I submitted to NASA. If we can, that actually is the report I have. And if you can see the whole page, which I have, they blacked out 95% of it. And I just thought it was kind of comical that that's my information I gave to you, and now you're giving it back to me all blacked out. And so I had to go through pages and pages of email, and I knew there had to be some discussions. There had to be some kind of correspondence between NASA employees about what happened, because they would need to know and need to figure out how to go forward. And ultimately, I did see an email exchange, and that's probably the next image. It basically, that's the whole report there. And the next image actually has there it is, February 17th. So they attached all the rigging. The artifact broke in pieces, and they got two small portions recovered, and the rest of it was not successfully recovered. And the majority of the structure is still on the bottom now. They ran out of time and money, and so the left wing is still on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, about 7 miles off Cape Canaveral. I was obviously gutted and disappointed that they weren't successful. I mean, I felt bad because I know they put their all into it. I know they had some weather issues because they're trying to do this in February, which is not great weather to be doing this offshore.
We lucked out.
Yeah, we lucked out. So ultimately they abandoned any future efforts to recover this piece. So that's kind of where the story ends. Is it's still there.
Wow. So, okay, this is tricky because it's like it's government property. You can't just go down and get it. And initially they were like, yeah, no, leave it. But now you see that they actually had changed their mind. Is this something that maybe you could, if you wanted to, like, could you propose doing like a private mission to raise it for them or something like that?
Absolutely not. We would need to have their permission and their blessing, and also the family's blessing to do this, and then obviously significant funding to do this.
Right.
Because not only recovery, then where's it going? It should be reunited with the rest of the Challenger.
That's what I wonder too, is like, what was their goal in trying to raise it then? Like, what were they going to do with it? Is there any way of finding that out?
Yeah, well, I think again from my discussions, and this is just my impression, is one, it was protection from, again, it just being left out there to the elements, other divers, people out there potentially looting material, just disrespect of the site. I felt it was this is portion of a large memorial that should have been reunited. So I think that was a strong message that I was hearing. But they were also winging this. This is not in the wheelhouse of NASA to go out and do underwater recoveries,
Right.
Unless there's obviously unfortunate incident. But so I was getting a lot of questions. Again, Jimmy and I are the experts as far as underwater exploration and salvage. Not saying the Navy, they definitely know what they're doing as well. But before we got to that stage, we were constantly getting questions about, how do we do this? What's going to take? How long is it going to take? And then once it's recovered, they didn't know. They were talking about trying to find a hangar space for it initially, and then figure out how to reunite it. So they were kind of just, winging it on that's a really bad pun, but they were really just trying to improvise and make something happen, because this was, again, not something they had planned for. It's not something they've experienced doing. So
But yeah, that's a whole generation later. I mean, if they stopped doing it like 25 years ago, like they've got different priorities now. They've got different budget models. Like the facility that they mapped out all the pieces in originally isn't available anymore. Like you were saying, there's no hangar. Like, yeah, it's kind of sadly like an afterthought at this point. I feel like if anything, if I were making the call, I would want to raise it and stick it in the silo with the rest of the pieces. But I don't know. What about you guys? What do you think should have been done with it?
Well, it's been on the bottom for so long as well, and now you need to get it up. You need to preserve it. You need to knock all the incrustation and everything off from it sitting on the bottom for, what, 30, 40 years now? And once it's up, it eventually needs to reunite with all the other pieces of the shuttle, but there's going to be a process to get it to that point.
Yeah. I think, I agree wholeheartedly. I think it should be recovered and reunited with the rest of Challenger. But also keeping in mind, NASA's focus has changed dramatically from the 80s to now. I mean, now KSC is totally different than it was. The shuttle program has been retired. technology kind of rendered it obsolete very quickly with these small satellites, and we're seeing what SpaceX and Relativity Space and all these private contractors are doing. That one is the irony of this is that's what the shuttle was originally designed to do. It's supposed to be a very quick turnaround, almost like a weekly, bi-weekly kind of vehicle to deliver material to space. And ultimately, it was just not. It was too complex. It couldn't deliver on the promise. And obviously, with technology and microprocessors, microchips, making things smaller and smaller, you didn't need that cargo bay of the Challenger anymore. You could put it on a rocket and do what these private companies are doing today. So they learned, I think, to say that, SpaceX and all these other companies, or they learned from NASA. I mean, they're standing on NASA's shoulders and the shuttle program's shoulders. So it's not like they just snapped their finger and invented this stuff. This has been going on for decades, and everyone's played a role in this to where we are today.
It's also really interesting too to think in terms of salvaging things and whatnot. And I guess this is a question I have for you all as well. So you said government stuff, you can't touch it, it's off limits, whatever. You guys have done a lot of other excavation. Is that the right word? Underwater excavation, I guess, finding things. You've done a lot of stuff like that for other historical things, right? I know there's an amazing story about Jimmy, you finding the candlestick and everything like that. If you find something, if you're just a recreational diver and you find something, can you just take it, or like also how do you know if it's something that you need to report versus just being able to take it like a coin or a doubloon?
That opens up a whole can of worms right there. Basically, there's a whole process that's involved in going down that road. That yes, if you're a recreational diver, some things are salvageable, should I say? But other things are like if it's of value, if it's out there, there's a whole process that needs to be gone through.
That's a whole nother hours long.
Yeah,
there's different opinions, and to sum it up though, there are layers of regulations. Obviously, if it's a naval vessel or whether it be U.S. Navy or foreign navies, it's all sovereign immunity. It's like our embassies. That is off limits. Even vessels that private vessels, tankers or freighters, those were insured. So the insurance companies, once they were sunk and the companies were paid off, they're now in the books and ledgers of the insurance companies, and they own it. So potentially you might have to negotiate with them for finder's fees or salvage awards. Again, if it's in state waters versus federal waters, it's a vast myriad of laws and regulations. So if you don't know, don't. I mean, if you don't know what you're doing, don't get yourself in.
It's interesting though, because you hear about Jeff Bezos going down for like the Saturn V F1 engine and just like on a whim, just wanted to do it. But also Starship, right? It's having all these flight tests and they're purposely exploding them so that they don't sit around there and float into Mexican waters and whatnot. But these pieces, I mean, I would assume eventually, sink to the bottom, and hopefully they're far enough out there in the Indian Ocean that, it's not really affecting anyone or, harming reefs and fish and stuff. I also think about all the propellants leaking out and how that's probably not, great for the environment either. But I also think, there's oftentimes you see people who just find these tiles from Starship that just wash up on the beach and they just take them home and have them on their wall or serve food on them or whatever. So that's obviously a commercial organization. I'm sure they also have insurance. I'm sure they also would like their stuff back. But is it also kind of like a don't ask, don't tell situation when it comes to explosions and stuff?
I don't know. I think we're getting into some murky waters that I really don't want to on, but I mean, to your point, though, that's one of the fascinating. Getting back to kind of the overall discussion point here is, off Cape Canaveral, since World War II, basically that was kind of the epicenter of space exploration, and I have basically hundreds of numbers of missiles, rockets, and stuff that were all launched and either failed and splashed in the water, and people have found these over the years, and we have a lot of them are buried. But I always thought it would be the coolest thing to find, a V2 rocket. This was from Germany, World War II, the Nazi, that was one of the engineering marvels. And that's what Werner von Braun, we basically used German technology to advance space exploration. And to link that, basically off Cape Canaveral, there's an underwater museum off of there that I think would be fascinating to go out and explore and discover. And to your point about Jeff Bezos and the engine, that was obviously, they had talked with NASA about that, got permission to recover that. But we had some friends that work on that as well, so that was a fascinating project, and yeah, kudos to them. That was a monumental effort.
And a lot of everything that's going on now, they do have recovery teams that go out there and that are waiting in the event of anything goes wrong, if anything explodes, if they're doing something on purpose. They have a team that's out there like anticipating this. So if anything were to go wrong, they're going to try and recover as much as possible prior to it just washing up on shore.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention, there's a lot of these companies, they require approvals and permits to basically launch. And we were actually requested to go out. There was a company, they had a launch failure in the rocket, basically didn't make it into orbit, splashed down. It was in deep water, about 240 foot of water. And they need to recover that to analyze what happened to get authorization for the next launch. And that was, you're talking about a lot of money in the line, and every delay is even more money. And so there's a lot of impetus, not only for liability reasons to figure out what happened, but also to get permission to continue their endeavor. So, there are a lot of contracted people to go out and find stuff that to recover it for various reasons. So
for data purposes, no, that makes a lot of sense as well. We have a question here too. Actually, you mentioned you'd love to find the V2 and all that. What is, for both of you, what is your dream underwater discovery that if you found it, it would be your holy grail? Or your white whale, I suppose. You kind of already alluded to the Flight 19 before, but what's your dream?
I have a pretty long list. I've been very fortunate. I've been able to dive on a lot of historic vessels, and I've identified quite a few fascinating. And for me, it's always the next one, the next dive, the next unknown wreck that I can identify. Obviously, there's a lot of vessels that I would love to go out and find and discover. Most of them are out of reach because of logistics, the depth where they are in the world. But there have been some fascinating discoveries in the past 5 or 10 years. Endurance, down in the South, South Arctic. That was just phenomenal discovery. And so that's what's neat with technology these days with AUVs and ROVs, and there's just a lot more bathymetric mapping going on. I think this is potentially the golden age for undersea discoveries. So I'm excited about it. Unfortunately, time is not waiting for me, so I gotta move fast because I'm getting older every day. So
no, same. It's really the unknown. There's always like Flight 19. There's always these discoveries that we're going to come across, but it's an unknown target is the most interesting target to me, to Mike as well. We don't know what it is. It could be anything. We just have a number from a GPS hit, from a survey from something, and we don't know what it is. That could be the next biggest discovery. Look at even just the Challenger that we found here. That was an unknown from a target, a surveyed target. That we know something's here. It could have been the Martin Mariner. It could have been another aircraft. It could have been anything really, but. Turned out to be the wing of the Challenger, which was huge, and it's really the unknown that kind of drives me and pushes me forward with all this.
Yeah, we're definitely shipwreck junkies, and we're almost like addicts because we're always thirsty for more, more adventure, more identifications. And we're actually speaking to you now. We're in Croatia right now. It's 10:30 at night over here. We're over here diving shipwrecks in the Adriatic. So it never stops.
What a cool job, though. That's amazing. That's so cool. And I guess you're right. You don't know what you don't know, to even say, because you're gonna say something and then you're gonna get a hit on something and then be like, oh my gosh, we found this other amazing thing. So we have a couple questions here before we wrap up. This was obviously documented in Bermuda Triangle into Cursed Waters on the History Channel. Some people were asking, how can they watch it? I think you said it's on Hulu and Prime right now.
It's on Hulu. I think it's on Amazon. If you Google Bermuda Triangle into Cursed Waters, I know it'll give you a list of places you could stream it. I know it streams in the US think Comcast streams it. There should be plenty of places to stream it. You should be able to go to the History Channel's website as well, and you can watch. There's two seasons of it out there. First season is 6 episodes. Second season's 11 or 12 episodes. So there's plenty you could go on and stream the whole series, and there's tons of other discoveries on there outside of the space shuttle itself as well. So it's a good watch. Yeah.
It's fascinating. It was really well done. And the first episode is the one about the Challenger, by the way, if you want to dig into that. I'm curious too, what was it like to have this documented for television? Do you feel like the way it was edited was like accurate to how it actually went down? Because I know with TV it can be a little bit weird sometimes.
I feel like they did a good job at it. I mean, there is the TV fluff in there. But at the end of the day, like, this is true exploration that we were able to put out on TV. Yeah. And I mean, this is something that very hard to do. I mean, as we saw.
Yeah. Obviously, we gave you kind of a behind the scenes of how it actually happened, which diverges a little bit from the more condensed episode that appeared on air. But also keeping in mind, they were very limited to how they could tell the story based on, because they needed NASA's involvement, and NASA had to sign off on it, be comfortable that they were going to be presenting something that was respectful and in the right tone and tenor. So obviously, I felt I would love to have dug more into it, but this was like kind of the big reveal. Like we're obviously looking for one other thing, and it takes a dramatic, turn middle of the episode. So they kind of do the big reveal. Obviously, you don't tell the reveal at the very beginning because you want to have the viewer, go along for the ride. So that's just the business of TV, though. So
what is the timeline of a typical exploration of something? Obviously there's a lot of research involved that might take years leading up to it, but like once you get kind of an idea of like, okay, there might be something down there, how long does it? I know you said you found like 3 things in one day, which is very unusual, I would assume, but typically how long does something take from when you find like an idea of something to actually going down and doing something with it? Maybe
I think it definitely varies. I've had some that have taken years. There's some wrecks that we identified one wreck. It took me about 12 years after diving because it just eluded us, and it was just a really difficult nut to crack. Other ones, we go right down. We can find an artifact that has a name on it, and we find it that day. So, but really to do your due diligence, I mean, a lot of times the search begins in the archives, in libraries, newspaper articles, trying to find leads. I feel that for every hour you can spend on the water, you should be spending 100 hours doing research on dry land, because it's going to be the basically the template for success, is having the information before you go out there, so you have an idea. But that being said, you sometimes, as with this is a great example, you're surprised and you find things by accident, and what you're looking for, you find something totally different. So it's not boring.
And if we're to go out on, say, a project that's going to last a couple of weeks, and we're offshore, we have all these targets that we're going to hit. Some of these targets might pan out in a day. We might figure it out while we're still offshore. Some might take months down the road. We have all the footage to scan through, to go through, and then it all kind of comes together at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Months later.
Yeah. And again, it's a lot of times it's a lot of hard work. I've gone out offshore sometimes, not even got in the water. We check out sites that just do not pan out, just bogus sites, bogus intel, and that's just part of the game. You have to be persistent. You just can't give up. You have to be obnoxiously persistent sometimes, and just.
It's funny you say that they're like just bogus sites. I feel like every other year somebody has found Amelia Earhart's plane. Like I think I just saw in the news that like somebody was like, "Oh yeah, we found it. It's actually like on this beach somewhere." And they're like, "What?" Like you would have seen that the water was so shallow. Have you ever been involved in any of the Amelia Earhart searches?
No, some of my friends are actually on the most current one right now, and I wish them success. And if you don't look, you're never going to find it. So,
Sure.
it's So, but yeah, sometimes it is eye rolling when people announce success before they haven't revealed any information. It's just trying to, I don't know if it's for investing reasons, trying to get more investors to pay in. But yeah, I feel that, especially for something like Amelia Earhart and finding that wreck, I feel it would be I think you should find it first and then announce it. Don't speak a whisper to anyone until you find it, because it's just going to attract naysayers and criticism, because there's so much baggage on that one.
I have 100% confirmation of it, knowing it's not geology, no, it's not seafloor bottom, or in shallow water. Somebody has probably already found it.
Yeah, you would think. So, just to kind of come full circle here then. So you found the Challenger, you didn't find the Martin Mariner, you didn't find Flight 19 yet. Are you planning to still look for it? Are you still going to continue the search for that mysterious disappearance?
I think the search is ongoing. We actually, again, we had some setbacks with losing Petrol, and we thought that was going to be a great partnership. But just here in Croatia, we've made some contacts, and we potentially have an avenue that might pan out, hopefully.
That's great.
The least we can do is, or the most we can, I guess, just keep trying. I mean, that's what we're not going to give up. I think I'm hoping the PBM Martin or Mariner is still going to be attainable. Flight 19 is a little bigger swing at the fences, but I think it. Right now we know where it isn't. So it's just a process of keep surveying until you find it, and that's what you got to do. So no one's going to find it sitting on the sofa contemplating where it is.
Absolutely.
You got to go out there and do the work.
And like you said, now is the time. You've got all the technology. We've got these ROVs, these submarines. I have confidence. I think you guys are going to find it. I'm really excited for you. There's a lot of prospects here. Yay.
Not us. I mean, Sol needs to find it. I think that's, like you, as in your intro, it was so eloquent and you covered all of the salient points there. It's not trying to solve a Bermuda Triangle mystery. It's not trying to find these aircraft. We're talking about 27 naval aviators.
Yeah.
And they deserve to have their story told correctly and not be tied to UFOs and aliens and time warps. And until we can find those aircraft, you're not going to know what actually happened. So that's the first step. Step one, find the aircraft, and then do the analysis to figure out what happened.
Absolutely. And it's all thanks to the hard work of people like you guys who are able to kind of go down there and find it all and identify it for us and everything. So thank you for all of your hard work as well, if NASA and everyone else hasn't already done so, because your find with the Challenger, also incredible. That was just such an amazing story that I'm so glad that we were able to talk about with you today.
Well, thank you for inviting us. It was a pleasure speaking to you and your audience. And yeah, be happy to answer any other questions that people might have.
Of course. Well, yeah, there's just a lot of people saying thank you so much. Great show. Amazing. This is fantastic. So much love for you in the chat. I think I got to most of the big questions that people were asking about there throughout it. But if not, we'll definitely, if anyone else has any other questions, feel free to put them in chat and we'll pass them along and maybe get some other answers for you. But I'm so excited to see the future of whatever, you guys are going to be going on. And I can't wait to, someday see when you finally do uncover something amazing. I'll be like, I talked to them. That was great. I want to also just mention to all of our viewers right now, again, just as a reminder, if you're interested in stuff like this underwater archaeology stuff, a few months ago, we opened up a brand new exhibit in our Space Shuttle Pavilion called Mysteries from the Deep, Exploring Underwater Archaeology. It dives into the fascinating work that people like Mike and Jimmy do, blending cutting edge technology, expert teams who are uncovering mysteries beneath the waves. It was co-produced by the Intrepid Museum and Flying Fish, who also made the touring exhibit Apollo when we went to the moon that we hosted last summer, if you were able to come for that. And it features things like shipwrecks and fossils and lost cities, like all kinds of really cool things that people have uncovered down there, and also raised some a little bit too. So it lets you explore some of the tools, some of the gear that they use to find these things. So if you do happen to be in the New York City area, please come by and check that out. It's open through January and it is also free with admission. So please come check that out. And that about wraps up our show for today. But Mike and Jimmy, thank you so much again for taking time out of your weekend to hang out with us, taking time out of your vacation in Croatia for joining us. How cool. And yeah, this has just been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your knowledge about all of this.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, our pleasure.
And once again, thank you to everyone tuning in, whatever channel that you're watching from, the museum social media channels, Facebook, YouTube, over at NSF channels as well. And of course, thank you to NASA and the New York Space Grant Consortium for your support as well. And to anyone who may have contributed to the ongoing museum fundraising that we do as well. Your support helps us to offer cool programs just like this. So thank you so much. Of course, be sure to join us next month for another episode of Astro Live, where we'll dive into another exciting topic about space and exploring extreme environments. Be sure to head over to intrepidmuseum.org to learn more. So I hope you all learned a little something today and enjoyed the show. But for now, that is a wrap on this one. So thanks so much for tuning in, everyone, and we will see you next time.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Throttling up. Roger, roger, Barnette.
Water towers fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Fighting downside FD off. Bring in FD off. It's orange!
R25. Oh my god! Oh my god!
Décollage.
Look at this!
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You bet. Sure. We don't need any more of these.